What do you do to change the system in such a way that the reforms won by the struggles of people, just like those that the ACLU is trying to build, what changes do you do that might enable those to be permanent, to be secure, to be things that people have won that they won't then lose 5 or 10 years down the road? And for me, there's only one answer I know. And it's not the answer you might have expected. My answer is not the answer that traditional critics of capitalism thought would be the solution, which is to have the government do this or that. Have the government take over the enterprise, have the government substitute planning for the market, the things that the Soviet Union, China, and so on did. It's not that. Seems to me what's happened in those two societies, Russia and China, is more a model of what we shouldn't do than what we should do. I think that has to be said as part of facing a reality. So what is it? We have to change the organization of business. That's what we have to do. We have to change the enterprise, the institution that produces goods and services. And we have to change it in such a way that conforms to our values, I'm going to explain to you in a minute what I mean, and that will support and secure the reforms that we want. So first, what do I mean? I mean, and I don't know a nicer way to say it, to democratize the enterprise. To bring democracy to the end. What does that mean? It means that the enterprise is a place in our society, just like the community where we live. In the community where we live, we say nobody should be in a position of power in that community unless we, the people, have the right to put them or take them away from that power. You can't have power unless you are responsible and accountable to the people over whom you exert the power. So in the end, the people exert the power over themselves through you, but not under you. That's what we mean by democracy. Well, if it's a good value for where we live, please explain to me, anybody, why it isn't a good value where we work. And if we did it where we work, it would mean that everyone in an enterprise, the manager, the technical worker, the janitor, all are citizens. They're part of the enterprise. And the decisions of the enterprise are to be made democratically. Everybody has one person, one vote to decide what the enterprise produces, how the enterprise produces, where the enterprise produces, and above all, what is done with the profits of the enterprise. We don't have democracy in the enterprise. We have a system in which a tiny group of people, the board of directors of a corporation, 15 to 20 persons on a board. How do you get to be on the board? You're elected by the shareholders. One shareholder, one vote? No. One share, one vote. You own 10 million shares, you get 10 million votes. You own no shares, you get no votes. 1% of Americans own 75% of the shares. That 1% decides who's on the board of directors. They make all the decisions. Do you have a job or not? What do you get paid? Will your job be moved to China next month? Will the profits you help to produce be used in a way that you have any control over? The answer is unambiguous. An enterprise is a fundamentally undemocratic institution, which is bizarre, isn't it? Because adults live most of their lives at work. 5 out of 7 days, the best hours of the day, you're at work. If you have a commitment to democracy, the first place it should have been instituted is your workplace, not the last. We live in a country that has never introduced democracy to the workplace. We fight wars in other countries to bring them a democracy we don't have. Right? But it's not as a value that I push it. It's as a solution. What do I mean? Let me give you some examples, and then we're done. Example number 1. The question, should the company that's located here in South LA close its shop, lay off 300 workers, and move to Shanghai. The board of directors brings in accountants and economists like me, and we say, wow, you can pay them nothing, those people over there, and so you're going to make much more profit than paying the high wages here in America. And so the board said, wow, we'll make more money, we're gone. And you in South LA, oh, live in a tent city down by the river. We don't care. That's not the way the system works. It's profit, and we're going to make more money. Now imagine a democratic enterprise. You put it up to the 300 workers. Would you like to see your job disappear? They have a vote. The conversation lasts for 5 seconds. The vote is held, overwhelming. We're not moving. They would never do it. We wouldn't have had 40 years of exodus of jobs everywhere in this country because it would never have happened. Let me give you another example. Some of you are interested in environment and ecology. Suppose there's a new technology that really fouls the river and pollutes the air. 500 miles away, the board of directors meeting in Chicago or New York or wherever they are, looking down, oh, this new technology is profitable. Yeah, it pollutes the air. We don't live there. If workers don't want to breathe that air, go get a job someplace else. They have the power, they institute the technology. You look, pretend it isn't there, breathe deeply, or move. Suppose the workers made the decision. On the one hand, they'd say, well, we want more profit too. But on the other hand, we have to breathe that stuff. And so do our husbands and our wives and our kids and our neighbors. And guess what? A lot of the time, that technology would not be adopted. Not always, but most of the time, those workers would, they would weigh that discussion in a different way from the way a corporation does. And we wouldn't have had half of the pollution that we've had. Let me give you a third and final example. Many of you are concerned, and I have tried to emphasize that this evening, about the inequality that grows in this country. Where does the inequality come from? The inequality in our society comes first and foremost, not from an athlete who jumps high or an actress who makes us cry. Those are exceptions. The basic inequality has to do with how we divide profits. The corporate board of directors does something that's going to come as a real surprise to you. If the decisions in a corporation are made by the tiny number of major shareholders, the ones who hold big blocks of shares, and the board of directors they select, I'm going to give you this surprising result. They take a disproportionate amount of the profits and they give it to themselves. And that's why we have very rich people, because the corporation pays the CEO the kind of money you see in the articles. 40 million, 80 million, 100 million. What difference does it make? It's all kind of monopoly money for them. Monopoly as in the game. That's why we have a tiny number of people with ridiculous amounts of wealth. Now suppose the workers democratically decided what to do with the profits. And the logic would be simple. All the workers helped to produce the profits. That's actually what the CEO says every year at the Christmas party. He thanks all the workers. He gets up on a stage when he isn't too drunk to speak, and he says, I want to thank you all, because every one of you, he can't see straight, but every one of you helped to produce the profit. Interesting, if all of us helped, how the hell is it that we're excluded from deciding what to do with what you just congratulated us for helping to produce? In a democratic enterprise, it's a democratic decision what is done with the profits. And guess what? No assembly of workers would give $40 million to 4 guys, and then everybody else can't send their kid to college because they don't have enough money. Not going to happen. So if you want to deal with pollution, you want to deal with runaway shops, and you want to deal with inequality, democratize the enterprise, because it's the best chance we have to get any of those things done. It means a radical reorganization. And for those of you, and this, I promise this really is the last point, other than what comes up in the conversation. For those of you that are skeptical, who are scratching your heads and saying, You really want the janitor to be part of a decision? You need a manager for that. A skilled manager. I have taught in business schools. Those of you who have not had a chance to go to a business school have missed exactly nothing. Business schools, MBAs, that's not about teaching you anything all that useful. If you talk to a corporation, they'll tell you, the minute we get a new MBA, we have to train that person into what they do, because I don't know what goes on in the that's a standard joke. I don't know what goes on over there, but, well, I'll explain to you. There aren't enough jobs. See, there are not enough jobs for managers. Way too many of you want to be a manager, and there aren't enough. We could have a society that says that to you. We're very sorry. You'd love to be that. Screw you. But this is likely to get you upset. Upset at a system that encourages you to study and learn in order to get this job, which we then say we're not going to. It's like telling the dog to jump for the biscuit and raising the biscuit each time the dog jumps higher. At a certain point, the dog is going to bite you. And this happens with people too. So we have to come up with a way to distribute too few jobs to all the people who want them, who are qualified to do them, who would be passionate about. We have to figure out a way that they won't get angry at the system which has failed to provide them with a job. Solution? Meritocracy. School, university. We are going to make sure that we're going to grade. I'm asked as a professor all my life to grade my students. You are an A. You are a B minus. You are a D. What's that for? I don't know enough about the student to give them a grade. I've had to in my classroom for a few weeks. This is ridiculous. And it's offensive. So why do we do it? Because we have to make sure that the employer can give the job to the one with an A. Why? Because the ones with B's and C's will then blame themselves for not getting the job, rather than the system that has failed to provide them with work. It's a political issue. We want to make sure that those of you who aren't going to get a job because this system has no job for you are instead angry at yourself and will bury yourself in a happy hour because you're so upset. That's all it's about. The reality is, it's one of the many mechanisms that takes a failed system and transforms the failure, not of the system, which we could change, but of something in you that's inadequate. It is a cruel form of torture. And those of you that suffer from it, and everyone in this room to some degree has this in their lives. And if you don't think so, you need to think about it some more. The system can be changed. The movement around the world now to change this system is greater than anything I have seen in my lifetime. I have been able in the last little while to talk to you in very profoundly critical ways about capitalism. I'm tempted to end in the way that one of my favorite comedians, George Carlin, used to. While I was talking critically about capitalism, did any lightning come through? Did anybody die? You think you'll manage to get home? Is it all such a big deal? Come on. Capitalism is now failing. It's failing the vast majority of people on this planet. It's making a tiny number of people wildly wealthy. Last week we had a report in the New York Times that a milestone was reached. A 2-bedroom condo that was sold for over $100 million. For those of you who know, it's Madison Park, Madison and 23rd Street, a tall, slim building. The top 4 floors are occupied. The top 4 floors are occupied by Rupert Murdoch. But he's not the one. Somebody else paid. He paid less because the prices are going up. This is obscenity. And the mass of people are more open now to understanding this when it's presented fairly clearly, maybe with a little humor, than ever before. It's our job to take that message where we work, where we live, and spread it and try to get people to see what's going on, which they three-quarters already do. And then the big one, get over the anxiety about organization. We won't agree, all of us. We won't 100% trust one another. That's okay. The people in Syriza, I can assure you, I've been to their meetings. They don't all agree, and they don't trust each other all that much. And they may blow apart, as political groups do. But they are very excited that they have reached a stage they never imagined they would get to. And we should take heart and learn. Something enormous is going on. Remember that Bob Dylan song? Do you understand what's going on? Or do you not? That's the issue. I haven't told you anything that doesn't tie together things you already knew. But point is, it becomes a narrative that really ought to move you to join with other people to make a change.